Hello and welcome back. In the previous video, we just set up getting this outline effect working for objects that are enabling the custom depth buffer. One of the things we realized though was that we can see this outline even though our objects are behind other objects. And we can fix that, so we're going to fix that in this video. Let's go ahead and get started. Now here we are in the post-process highlight or PP highlight material. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a scene texture custom depth node to get the distance from a pixel to the camera when that pixel is on an object that has enabled the custom depth buffer. So we're going to right click and let's go ahead and type scene texture. And we'll get this scene texture node. Now to get the custom depth value, we need to set scene texture ID to custom depth. And of course we need to mask this. So we'll drag off and type mask and get a component mask and mask out everything but the red. Now this gives us the distance to the pixel for objects with the custom depth enabled. Now we're also going to get a scene texture node. But for this second one, we're going to get the scene depth. So go ahead and set the scene texture ID to scene depth for this one. And we're going to mask this one as well. Now this one gives us the scene depth for all objects in the scene, whereas the custom depth will only give us white for all pixels except for those on objects with the custom depth enabled. Now what happens if we subtract these two? So I'm going to drag off and subtract. What exactly will we get here? Now let's think about this. If we're a pixel that's on an object that's enabled custom depth, then this top part is going to give us a relatively low value. And this bottom part is going to give us a high value. So subtracting these will give us a negative number. Now the custom depth buffer ignores all objects except for those that are in the custom depth buffer. So if we have an object in front of our gun, such as this wall here, the gun is behind the wall and the wall is occluding the gun. Now the custom depth buffer doesn't even know about this wall, and that's why we can still see the gun. But the scene depth buffer does know about the wall. And the scene depth buffer will give us the distance from the camera to the wall. So when we're subtracting this, if we're looking at the gun, we have a larger value minus a smaller value, and this will give us a positive number. So the takeaway is that this will be a positive value if the object is occluded or covered by a wall or something else. And it will be a negative value if the object is not occluded. Now we can take this and give it a seal node and clamp it between 0 and 1. And if it's a positive value, then it'll be rounded up and clamped to 1. And if it's a negative value, it'll be clamped to 0. So this will be a 0 if it's not occluded, and a 1 if it is occluded. Now, of course, we can do a 1 minus node, and that will reverse that. And so we can go ahead and give this a comment, and we can say 0 is occluded, 1 is not occluded. So essentially, we'll have a 0 on pixels where the object is behind another object, and we'll have a 1 for pixels where the object is not covered. So this can be useful because in our lerp up here, when the alpha is 0, we get the regular scene color. And if we know down here we have this information, a 0 for objects that are occluded and a 1 for objects that are not occluded, we can simply take this alpha value and multiply it by this value. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to move the PP highlight node down a bit, and I'm going to move the lerp forward just a bit. And for the alpha, I'm going to use a multiply node. So you can hold down the M key and click, and that'll give you a multiply node. That's a little shortcut. So let's, instead of this multiply going straight into the alpha, let's put it into the multiply and multiply it by this. And then we'll use this for alpha. And so this multiply node, we're going to put a comment, and this is going to be mask out occluded pixels. And just to make this clear what we're doing here, I'm going to comment the lerp and say A equals scene color, B equals outline. Okay, so let's go ahead and apply this, and we can see how this works. Okay, so I'm back here in the editor, and I've got the wall covering these objects, and I don't see the outline. Now, if I hover back over a bit, now I can see the outline. So the outline is not going to show up for objects that are occluded, or at least for pixels that are occluded. See, I'm covering part of the gun, and we can still see the outline for the part that's not occluded. Now, this includes the gun that our character is carrying. So if we go ahead and hit play, now we'll see that our gun has the outline only where we're not covering it. And where we're covering it, we don't see the outline, which is perfect. Okay, so that's going to wrap up this video. We now have outlines that are not showing when those pixels are occluded or covered by geometry. In the next video, we'll figure out how to make these lines thicker since they're really thin and barely visible. So I'll see you in the next video.